Hello everyone. Welcome to online education of Sir CRT College of Engineering. So in the last class, we have seen the classification of hydrothermal scheduling. So on what basis we have classified this hydrothermal scheduling into four categories? Let's have a look. The first one is depends upon the parameters. So in order to solve the hydrothermal scheduling problems, we need to consider some of the parameters. If these parameters are constant with respect to the time, the corresponding schedule is called as a static hydrothermal scheduling. These parameters are varies with respect to the time. The corresponding schedule is called as a dynamic hydrothermal scheduling. A simple logic: static and dynamic. Static means a constant in nature. Dynamic means it varies with respect to the time. And the second one is depends upon period of time. Means how much time we are going to schedule these two power sources, is hydro at the same time thermal. It may be a short-term source or a long-term basis. For example, if you consider R by R basis or within a day or within a week, that type of scheduling is called as short-term hydrothermal scheduling. So instead of like this, if you assume a month or a year, the type of corresponding schedule is called as hydrothermal scheduling. So already told in the last class, the most important point when we are considering a long-term at the same time short-term, that is related to head. When you are considering a short-term hydrothermal scheduling, here we can assume it is a constant because already I have shown you in the official site of EPGenco, it is not varies much when you are considering R by R within a day or within a week. But if you are considering the long-term basis, definitely it is going to change from season to season. So that's why here you cannot assume it as a constant value. But here you can assume it is a constant value. The same assumption we are going to make in the coming classes. That is very, very important observation from the long term at the same time short term. And the next one is depends upon the energy supplies to the load. So here, how many energies we are going to consider is two types of energies. The first one is hydro energy and the second one is thermal energy. In which these two, which type of energy is going to supply the load? Whether hydro energy is going to supply the load alone, or by mixing of hydro and thermal energy is going to supply the load. So depends upon this point, we have classified hydrothermal scheduling in terms of energy basis. And the next one is depends upon the algorithm procedure. So mainly here we have four types of algorithm procedures are there. The first one is depends upon the energy based, and the second one is depends upon the gamma lambda iterations, and the third one is using penalty factor method, and the last one is discretization method. In the last class already we have seen the first 3 points theoretically. Now in this class we will consider the algorithm procedure. So in that algorithm procedure, the first one is nothing but based on the energy. So in this class, we are going to see the scheduling based on the energies. So before going to in detail of this algorithm, first let us try to understand a basic representation of the hydrothermal scheduling. So this is nothing but a basic diagram, or we can say fundamental system. Why we are saying this one as a fundamental system is, so in this one, we are considering only one thermal power plant. Similarly, we are considering only one hydropower plant. So together must meet the load that is nothing but PD. So here, when you observe here, PZT means P is nothing but a power, Z is a generation, T is a thermal. Similarly, come to here, P is nothing but power, G is nothing but generation, and H is nothing but hydro. So the representation of the PZT, PGH, or PD are very, very important. So generally, that representation is called as nomenclature. So in the next slide, we are going to see how to represent the different parameters which are present in the first algorithm. So PGT means power generated by the thermal unit, and similarly PGH is nothing but power generated by the hydro plant. These two must be connected to a load state, or these two must satisfy or must meet the load which is represented by PD. And this is nothing but generation side. And coming to the water side or reservoir side, this is a water inflow, that is a J. So universally it is represented with J, and this box is nothing but a reservoir or storage. So generally we can represent either with using X or W. Some of the others may use X and some of the others use W also. This is valve and this is water discharge. It is represented by small q or capital Q. So it differs from other two other. So this is a normal representation of the scheduling based on the energies. So here load is there PD. So for this load, either you can get a power from the PGT, or either you can get the power from hydro plant, or we can get the power from both. So based upon this point only, the first algorithm is based. That is nothing but based on the energies. How the load is reached with the usage of these two sources. So that is nothing but first algorithm, which is scheduling based on energies. So before going to the actual algorithm, first let us try to understand the nomenclature. So already we know what is the meaning of nomenclature. Nomenclature means simply how we can represent the different parameters. First, let us try to by taking a small example. So in this one, I am considering 1 year, total year. When you are considering any year, it consisting of 12 months, from January to December. From January to December. When you are considering a year as a unit, the total number of months which are present in this year is nothing but 12 months. Generally, this time is called as a total time. It is represented by either T max or T. Very, very important, because the nomenclature is very, very important for algorithms. So that's why please give a lot of respect and a lot of importance to this nomenclature. So from January to December, when you are considering the time, the total time is nothing but represented by using T or a T max. It is nothing but generally 12 months. And the next one is, if I ask you to divide the total year into equal intervals, then how many parts we will get here? 12 parts, or we can say 12 intervals. So that is nothing but total sub intervals is nothing but 12, because January is itself a one interval, February is its a one interval. So like this, every month is its a own interval, or we can say sub interval. So when you're having the 1 year of period, we can classify or we can divide that 1 year time into 12 equal parts, and each and every part is nothing but every month. January is one interval, February is one interval. So like this, we can divide into 12 equal parts. So when you are considering each month is nothing but one sub interval. Each month, when you are considering January, is a one of the interval. When you are considering June, it is also one of the interval. If you are considering the September, it is also one of the sub interval of the total portion. It is represented by small m. Sub interval is represented by small m. And coming to the total sub intervals, it is nothing but 12. It is represented by capital M. So here, how many months are there? 12 months are there. Already I told you, each and every month is a sub interval. So 12 months are there, 12 sub intervals are there. So that's why total sub intervals are nothing but 12. It is represented by capital M. And coming to the next one, time for each sub interval is H hours. For example, when you are considering the January, how much time is there in that particular interval? It is nothing but H hours. Similarly, if you are considering the September, it is also same having H hours. Similarly, if you are considering the December, it is also having H hours. Of course, practically, this time may not be set because the number of days is not equal in all the months. But for this sake of easy understanding of example, let us assume each and every interval have H hours of time. So we can say time for each sub-interval is nothing but H hours. In the next slide, I will represent each and everything. So technically, now coming to the most important point, if you are considering from January to December in hydrothermal scheduling means we need to coordinate hydro at the same time thermal. Let us assume hydrothermal unit is operating from January to December. Let us assume the time period is from January to December. Hydrothermal unit. I'm not saying hydro unit or I'm not saying a thermal unit. Means here I'm taking hydro energy at the same time thermal energy. Okay, I'm considering two units. Hydro unit at the same time thermal unit. Let me assume that if this coordination works from a January to December, then how to find how much time is operating for thermal, similarly how much time hydropower plant is in operating condition. So let us try to understand. For example, if we assume a thermal power plant is operating from January to May. So let us assume if the thermal power plant is operating from January to May, means how many subintervals I am considering here? 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So total I am considering 5 subintervals. And already I told you that each subinterval time is nothing but H hours. Now tell me how we can calculate the total time period for thermal period, number of subintervals into time for each subinterval. That is nothing but 5 into H. This 5H is nothing but the time for operating for a thermal unit. Okay, this is nothing but 5H. 5H is nothing but the thermal operating time. So once we know the thermal operated condition from January to May, easily we can calculate the hydro operated time also. That is nothing but this one. For example, when you assume a thermal is operating from January to May, and the remaining is nothing but only hydro itself. Already I told you that when we are considering from January to December, a hydrothermal unit is activated or hydrothermal unit is working. But in my first assumption, I'm considering only thermal, that is from January to May itself, in the first 5 slots only, in the first 5 subintervals only. So when you leave these 5 subintervals, then automatically remaining 7 is nothing but only hydel power plant. In the first 5 slots, along with the hydel, thermal is also in running condition. In the first 5 slots from January to May, along with the hydel, thermal is also in active state. Means hydel is operating throughout the year from January to December. Let us assume for the sake of first algorithm. Okay, for the sake of first algorithm only, let us assume, but practically it may not happen because generally we used to operate thermal power plant for so many hours when compared to hydel power plant. But for the sake of first algorithm, let us assume hydel power plant is running from January to December. That is fixed. And coming to the thermal power plant, let us assume thermal power plant is working only from January to May itself. Means only 5 subintervals. So how we can calculate the time for thermal power plant? How many subintervals are there? And what is the time for each subinterval? That is nothing but 5 into H. So once we know this one, easily can we calculate idle operated condition. That is nothing but we know total time, that is T minus Tt. So what is the T value here? 12 equal parts, means 12 subintervals. So 12 minus 5, that is nothing but 7. And the time for each subinterval is nothing but H. So 7H. 7H is nothing but the time operated only for idle. Only for idle. Means in this case, thermal is in absent. Thermal is in an inactive state. Thermal is not working condition. And coming to the first 5H, along with the thermal, idle is also in working condition. Already I told you that for the sake of first algorithm itself, we are assuming like this. Idle is operating throughout the year from January to December, whereas thermal is nothing but a portion of total time period. Just a portion of the total time period. Here the total time period is 12 months, 12 subintervals, and out of that subintervals, you can take any value for a thermal. Here I am considering 5 subintervals. So that's why I can calculate easily the time taken by the thermal condition, thermal power plant. That is nothing but 5H, and the remaining time is nothing but only idle power plant. This is nothing but how we can calculate the time for a thermal power plant, and similarly only hydro power plant. And the next one is the representation of the powers in each and every subintervals. So already we know what is the meaning of PGT. PGT is nothing but power generated in a thermal power plant. So when you use here 3 superscript, okay, when you use here 3 represents particular subinterval. So here, what is the third subinterval here? March. So PGT3 represents total power generation in thermal power plant in third subinterval. Means third subinterval means in March. So that is the meaning of PGT3. So once you understand this one, then automatically you can understand the nomenclature technically. So let's have a look. Just take a moment. Let's have a look. So try to understand each and everything. So here T max and T is nothing but the total time period, and small m is nothing but subintervals, a particular subinterval, and capital M is nothing but a total subintervals, and H is nothing but the time in each and every subinterval, and TT is nothing but how many hours thermal power plant is in operating condition, and TT is nothing but same thing, and idle, how you can represent idle? TH is nothing but how many hours idle power plant is in operating condition. So easily we can calculate from our common sense. So this is nothing but a simple example nomenclature. And let's move to a technical nomenclature. So the first one is PGT or PS. It is nothing but power generation in the thermal unit. Already we know PGT. PGT means power generated in thermal power plant. It is also represented in PS. S means here stream. Both are same. Whether it is a thermal or steam, both are same. So that's why we can represent power generation in thermal plant with PGT or PS. And the next one is PGH. The difference between only here T is there, here H is there. Everything is same. Here power generated in idle power plant. That is nothing but PGH. And the next one is PGTM. This is very, very important. Try to understand here. Already I told you in the previous slide itself. Just a little while ago, just we have seen PGTM, where M stands for a particular interval. PGT means power generated in thermal power plant. Here M represents particular subinterval. So how we can say PGTM is power generation in a thermal power plant in mth interval. So here in the previous example, mth interval means here M value may varies from 1 to 12 in the previous example, because from January to December when you consider totally 12 months are there. 12 months means 12 subintervals are there. So that's why here in the previous example M value is nothing but varies from 1 to 12, but practically it depends upon the maximum size of the system. And next one is PGHM. The same thing. It is nothing but thermal and it is nothing but idle. So power generation in idle plant in mth interval. And the next one is PDM. So PD is nothing but generally we know we are very much familiar to these words. So PD is nothing but a load. So power demand in the mth interval. And the next one is capital M. Capital M is nothing but already we have seen in the previous slide. That is total number of time intervals. Total number of time intervals. And small m is nothing but a particular interval. So here, when you look at small m is nothing but a particular interval, and capital M is nothing but a total number of time intervals. So in the previous example, this capital M value is nothing but 12. So what is the value of M value, small m value? Here, small m value in the previous example is from 1 to 1. It may be 3, it may be 5, or it may be 7, it may be 9, whatever it is. But the small m value is in between 1 to capital M value, because capital M is nothing but total number of time intervals. 1 is nothing but a starting interval. So that's why small m value is always in between 1 to capital M. So that's why how we can represent when we are going to a summation of the given function, sigma m equals to 1 to capital M. So again I'm saying sigma small m is equals to 1 to capital M. So when you write like this, then automatically we are considering all the intervals from starting to ending itself. So that's why we are using a sigma summation. So in order to add all the intervals from January to December, we need to know the time in the January. We need to know the time in February. So like this, we need to know the time in all the intervals. So how we can add all the times plus by using plus symbols. So instead of using like this, just use a sigma. Sigma is nothing but the representation of addition. But what are the limits here? Starting limit to maximum limit. Starting limit is generally 1 and maximum limit is nothing but total number of time interval. That is represented by capital M. Okay. And the next one is the representation. Again we are taking because the representation is very, very important. When you are considering PGT3, PGT is nothing but power generated in thermal power plant. But coming to the here 3, that is a particular interval. So what is the meaning of PGT3 means? Power generated by the thermal power plant in third interval. For example, when I say here PGT7, Means what is the meaning of that one? Power generation by thermal plant in seventh interval. So this representation is very, very important for a coming derivation. So again, take a moment and observe all these things. Let's try to understand how we are using the nomenclature. Nomenclature is nothing but simply a representation of the different parameters. Okay, now let's move to one more nomenclature slide. Let's have this. NT. NT is nothing but time interval per thermal. Means how many intervals, in how many intervals thermal power plant is in working condition. That is nothing but NT. N stands for number of intervals and T stands for thermal. For how many intervals thermal power plant is in working condition. Similarly, NH. NH is nothing but how many intervals the hydel power plant is in working condition. So when you add these two, then automatically you will get total number of intervals. That is given by M equals to NT plus NH. So in the previous example, this NT is nothing but from January to May means 5 sub-intervals, and only hydel is nothing but from remaining months from June to December. It is nothing but 7. So 5 plus 7 is nothing but 12. And that 12 is nothing but total sub-intervals. So here NT is nothing but for how many intervals thermal power plant is in working condition. Similarly, NH is nothing but for how many hours hydel power plant is in working condition. Together is called as total number of sub-intervals. Okay, this is one more important nomenclature. And let's move to one more thing, that is HM. HM is nothing but number of hours in the mth interval. For example, when you consider here a different intervals will have a different times. But generally we can call it as a HM. HM means number of hours in mth interval. So what is the time duration is there in that particular duration, that particular interval? That is going to represent it with HM. And the next one is P loss M. So in the previous slide we have seen PD, and here we are taking a P loss M. So this is nothing but loss in mth interval. And the next one is till now we have seen only the power side only. Next, coming to the water side, Q in M is nothing but inflow in mth interval. So how much inflow is there in that particular interval? Similarly, outflow, that is nothing but discharge. Q naught M is nothing but discharge in mth interval. How much discharge is there in that particular mth interval? Okay. And coming to the timings. So already we have seen this one. Tmax at T is nothing but total time, and TT or TS is nothing but total time for thermal. So already I told you that you may use T or S. T stands for thermal, S stands for steam, both are same. And the last one is TH, total time for hydel. So this is nothing but a nomenclature which is required for to take up the first algorithm. So again, take a moment and all of you observe this nomenclature. The reason for it is before you are going to take the first algorithm, you must be familiar with this nomenclature. So otherwise, we can't move forward. So that's why I'm giving I'm spending a lot of time for a nomenclature. Very, very important terms. So observe each and everything. Take a moment. Okay, then let's move to actual problem. That is first algorithm based upon the energies. So before going to take up the actual algorithm, we need to assume some of the points in this algorithm. So what are those points and what are those assumptions? So first we will consider the first assumption, that is total hydel capacity is more than the load capacity. Hydel capacity is more than the load capacity. How we can represent mathematically? This is nothing but representation. PGHM is greater than PDM. So M means during a particular interval. So when we are talking about hydropower plant, definitely we must take a particular interval, because hydel power plant generation is, it depends upon the time. So that's why definitely we must give a lot of importance and a lot of respect to the time intervals. So here M is nothing but mth interval. So how we can represent this assumption? PCHM should be greater than PDMM. PCHM means power generation by hydel power plant in that particular mth interval must be greater than PD means power demand in that particular mth interval. This is nothing but first assumption. And PD is also called as P load. So that's why we can represent same thing as PCHM should be greater than P load M. This is first assumption. And the second one is total hydel energy is not enough to meet a load energy. So this is also a very, very important assumption. Total, whatever the hydel energy is there, that is unable to meet the load energy. So how you can represent it in terms of mathematical sigma small m is equals to 1 to capital M PCHM HM. This is nothing but energy of hydel power plant. So what is the difference between first one and the second one? Coming to the first one, when we are talking about capacity, it is nothing but a power rating. It is nothing but purely power rating. So the power rating of the hydel is more than the load power. That is nothing but first assumption. But again, come to the second point. This is also very, very important. Whatever the energy which is produced by the hydel, it is unable to meet the load energy. So how we can represent the energy? Energy is nothing but power into time. So that's why this is nothing but power and this is nothing but time. So how we can calculate the total time? By using subintervals. So just go back and remember previous example from January to December. If you want to calculate the total time, what will you do? We need to calculate the number of hours in the January. We need to calculate the number of hours in the February. So like this, we used to go on up to December. So instead of like this, what we will do is here we are using sigma. Sigma, this is first interval and upper limit is nothing but maximum interval, a total number of intervals. This is power into time. Then we will get the energy. So this is nothing but hydel energy must be less than, this is nothing but a load energy. Okay. Try to understand these words, how to represent the energy. Just look at these two terms, how we can represent energy in terms of hydel and in terms of load. Okay, so there is a very small difference is there between first assumption and the second assumption. The first one is capacity and the second one is in terms of energy. You may think that, sir, when the capacity is more, then automatically we can get more and more energy. Yes, but we need to have some constraints also. We have some constraints when we are talking about hydel energy. That is nothing but what constraint. So here, water is not available throughout the time period. Water may be present or may not be present. When the water is there, then automatically hydel energy is more when compared to the load energy. But when water is not there, then automatically load energy is more when compared to the hydel energy. But maybe capacity of the hydel unit is more when compared to the load capacity. But in some of the times, whatever the hydel power plant is there, that plant may not produce the energy which is not enough to meet the load energy. Depends upon the water available. So when the water availability is there, then automatically we can meet in some of the times. Hydel energy is equals to load energy. But when the water is not there, it is not possible. So that's why we need to assume this point. That is, total hydel energy is not enough to meet load energy. And coming to this point, just now I already told you, this is nothing but total time. M is nothing but number of hours in that particular mth interval. When we are considering all the intervals, when you add all the time, you will get total time. How you can represent total time, either with the Tmax or capital T. So this is nothing but a Tmax representation. Definitely you must familiar with this representation of the hydel energy, load energy, and the maximum time like this. You must familiar with these usage of sigma, lower limit and similarly upper limit. Okay, and the next one is the most important constraint or assumption in this case is the remaining energy is supplied by the thermal plant. So when you come to the second point, so what we came to know that the idle energy is unable to meet the load energy. So in that case, what happens? Definitely, when you come to the practical case, Pg must be equals to Pd. When you are in electrolysis, Pg must be equals to Pd. I mean, definitely we must meet the load. But when you are considering only idle energy, what happens here? Idle energy is unable to meet the load. So definitely there is a power shortage is there or energy shortage is there. So according to third assumption, what we assumed is whatever the shortage energy is there, that must be supplied by the thermal power plant. That must be supplied by the thermal power plant. So what is the shortage here? Load energy minus idle energy. This is nothing but shortage only, isn't it? So load energy minus idle energy is nothing but shortage only. The shortest power or the shortest energy must be supplied by the thermal power plant. So how we can represent here? E is equals to load energy. This is your load energy. So this is your load energy minus this is your idle energy. And representation E is nothing but thermal energy. E is nothing but the thermal energy. Understand everybody? So whatever the shortage is there, that shortage of energy is going to supply by the thermal power plant. So how we can represent? That is E equals to load energy minus idle energy. So once again, I'm repeating, I'm requesting you that please all of you must familiar with the usage of sigma, lower limit, lower subintervals, total subintervals, and M. M is nothing but in that particular interval. So once you're familiar with these nomenclature, then automatically we can finish algorithm, first algorithm within a fraction of time. Okay. So this is nothing but the remaining energy supplied by the thermal power plant. Similarly, we can write the thermal power plant energy as like this, because E equals to sigma lower limit to total number of intervals PZTM HM. Because what is the difference between this one? Here H is there, here T is there. So like this also we can represent thermal energy. This is power and this is time. Power into time is nothing but energy. So like this we can write thermal energy also. Okay, so this is nothing but assumptions what we are going to assume or what we are going to consider in the first algorithm. The first one is idle capacity is more than the load capacity, and the second one is idle energy is unable to meet the load energy, and the third one is whatever the shortage of energy is there, that should be supplied by the thermal power plant. So these three assumptions we are going to consider in the first algorithm. First algorithm is nothing but based upon the energy supply. And let's move to the solution of this algorithm. So how to get the solution? Mathematical formulation. So in order to get the solution, we need to form a mathematical formulation. We must have a mathematical equation. So how we get the mathematical formulation? E is same method of your first unit concept. So in the first unit, we have considered only thermal power plants. So in that, how we did mathematical formulation is nothing but by using the auxiliary equation. So auxiliary equation is nothing but Lagrangian function. So how we can write Lagrangian equation? That is nothing but objective function plus lambda into constraint. So when we have the one constraint, this is the equation. So Lagrangian equation is nothing but objective function plus lambda into constraint. But here we must identify what is the objective function and what is the constraint. So for this one, I am showing some equations. When you are considering thermal power plant, the main objective is to reduce the fuel cost. Even if you take the coordination of the hydro and thermal, here also our main objective is to reduce the fuel cost which is present in the thermal power plant only. Because when you are considering the hydro power plant, the fuel is water. So when you are considering the water as a source, the running cost is nothing but almost equal to, or we can say 0 also. So that's why whether it is a combined portion of a combined operation of the idle and thermal, or only in case of thermal power plants, our main objective is to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal plant itself. So that's why we are going to consider only thermal power plant energy only. So that is given by Ft is equals to sigma m equals to 1 to nt, where nt is nothing but number of hours or number of intervals for which thermal power plant is in operating condition. And NH is nothing but number of hours for which Idle power plant is in active state or on operating condition. So here our main objective is to minimize the fuel cost of the thermal power plant. So that's why I'm considering like this. Ft is equals to sigma m equals to 1 to nt f of PGTM into hm. This is nothing but the thermal energy. And this equation can be considered as a cost function. And this is nothing but our objective function. So our main objective in this case is to minimize the thermal energy. To minimize the thermal energy. Or we can say to minimize the fuel cost in the thermal power plant. That is nothing but objective function. And coming to the constant, this is constant. So already go back to our previous slide, then you can understand. So this is nothing but constant. So what is the total assumption? Whatever the remaining energy is there, that should be supplied by the thermal power plant. So this is going to consider as a constant. So how we can write E equals to sigma m equals to m, PGTM and H. This is nothing but one of the constants. So like this, you can assume constant as sigma m equals to 1 to nt, PGTM, hm minus E is equals to 0. And what is the value of E? E is nothing but the difference between load energy and idle energy. So this is nothing but E value. The difference between this is load energy. So energy is nothing but power into time. PDM is nothing but power in the mth interval. And what is the time here? Sigma m equals to 1 to m and hm. This is a total time. So this is nothing but the total energy in the load side. So that load energy minus idle energy. That is given by E, thermal energy. So this is nothing but constant. So once if you have the objective function plus constant equation, then automatically we can write auxiliary equation, that is Lagrangian function. How can write here? Objective function plus lambda into constant. Substitute here. So we know objective function and we know constant also. Substitute here. Then you will get like this. This is objective function plus lambda into this is constant. So objective function is nothing but the cost function or energy of the thermal unit, and the constant is nothing but thermal energy. So when you substitute like this, you will get like this. So then after that, what happens? We need to apply Kuhn-Tucker conditions. So what is the meaning of Kuhn-Tucker conditions? We need to derive partial differentiation with respect to the variable parameter. Here variable parameter is nothing but PGTM. So when you take that one, you will get like this. Dou L by dou PGTM is equals to df of PGTM divided by dPGTM plus. So now tell me the most important point. Of course, we are very much familiar with the mathematics. Our target is we need to derive or we need to find out the partial differentiation with respect to the PGTM. But now tell me for the first term, that is objective function, why we have written like this? Means instead of taking the partial differentiation, why we are taking a normal differentiation with respect to the PGTM. Now tell me anybody. Message me in our chat box. Let's quickly. We need to find out the partial differentiation with respect to the PGTM. But when you are considering the first one, why we are using here normal differentiation of cost function with respect to the PGTM? Yes, I got one message from A6. It's one variable now. Still anybody? Please give a response as quickly as possible. Yes, I got one more response from 18 series. One variable. So let's see the actual meaning. So when we use a normal differentiation and similarly when we use a partial differentiation, that is the point here. When you consider the first one, that is objective function, this f is nothing but one of the function. It is a function of only PGTM only. It is a function of only PGTM. When you do the derivative with respect to PGTM, then automatically no need to use a partial differentiation, because whatever the parameters are there in this function, all these parameters are completely depends on this PGTM only. Means this is nothing but a dependent parameter only. When we use the partial differentiation means when we have the dependent at the same time independent parameters, then we will go for a partial differentiation. But if all the parameters are dependent, then there is no meaning to consider a partial differentiation. So that's why in the first, in place of objective function, we are considering here a normal differentiation plus lambda into what is the value of E when you do the partial differentiation with respect to the PGTM, you will get zero value because come to here, E. E is nothing but the function of load and the function of ideal power plant. But here we are differentiating with respect to the thermal. So that's why automatically you will get here 0 minus when you do the differentiation with respect to the PGTM, then you will get here 1. So this is nothing but after doing the differentiation. So from this, find out lambda value. So when you do rewrite this equation as, we'll get a lambda value. So finally we get lambda value is nothing but this one, df of PGTM divided by d PGTM. This is nothing but lambda value. Already we know what is the value of lambda. Lambda is nothing but incremental fuel cost. Automatically when you observe this lambda value and what we got in the first intro almost same, but the representation is a very minor difference. It's only a difference. Everything is same. Your second unit is nothing but just extension of the first unit. In the first unit we have considered only thermal power plants. In the second unit we are considering along with the thermal power plant one more power plant, that is nothing but ideal power plant. Okay, so this is nothing but lambda value. Okay, next we will move to optimal hydrothermal scheduling. So everybody look at this graph. Try to understand or try to guess at least some information. What information is there or what information we can extract from this graph? It is very, very important. For example, when you consider this graph from 0 to Tmax, your x-axis is time and your y-axis is load. When you are considering from 0 to Tmax, stream a thermal power plant is going to produce the energy. Similarly, hydel is also giving the energy. But the important point is how much time they are producing energy. That is very, very important. So from this, we can get that information. So when you see here, from 0 to Ts, so already we can get one information, that is, when you see here, hydro is always present from 0 to Tmax. Hydro is always present from 0 to Tmax. That is fixed. Already I told you in my assumptions only. And next one is stream. When you consider the stream or a thermal power plant, it is operating only from 0 to Ts only. It is operating only from 0 to Ts only. Okay, and the most important point is from 0 to Ts, stream is operating. Similarly, hydro is also operating. From Ts to Tmax, only hydro power plant is an operating condition. Only hydro is in operating condition. Now, the main important our objective in the first algorithm is we have to find out hydro generation, we have to find out steam generation, and similarly, along with those two, we need to find out Ts or Tt. Ts or Tt means it is nothing but for how much time thermal is in active state or thermal is in working condition. Similarly, we need to find out how much time hydro is in working condition. So we need to find out these four parameters: hydro generation, thermal generation, and along with these generations, we need to consider intervals also. How much time thermal power is in active state or working condition. Similarly, how much time hydro power plant is in working condition. So these are nothing but our objectives. So for this one, and one more important point from this graph is when you look at steam power plant, just now in the previous slide we got incremental fuel cost, that is nothing but lambda. Lambda is nothing but incremental fuel cost. When you see here from 0 to Ts, the power is constant here. Whatever the power which is going to generated by the steam, it is constant. So already I told you, this is nothing but load. A part of load should be supplied by the steam, and the remaining energy is supplied by the hydro. That is nothing but our assumptions only. So from 0 to Ts, whatever the power is going to produce by the stream, that power is always constant. And that power is represented by PS star or PGT star, both are same. PS star or PGT star. Okay, stream or the thermal. So this is nothing but what we can get or what we understood from this graph. So in order to find out this one, we need to consider some of the parameters. Let's see those are. And how we can write this total time TT or TS. When you are considering here sigma m equals to 1 to nt, hm is nothing but TT. Because already I told you that this is a lower limit and nt is nothing but the total number of intervals for which thermal is an operating condition. For example, 10 intervals are there. For example, if you assume nt is equals to 10 intervals. From 0 to ts, we have 10 intervals are there. For each and every interval, some duration is there. For example, if you ask you that how much time thermal power plant is in working condition, then how can you say we need to add the time which are present all the durations. But instead of like this, how can we represent here sigma? Sigma lower limit, that is m equals to 1 to n to total number of intervals. hm means number of hours in mth interval. That should be equal to total time for stream. So that's why we can represent with TT or TS. So this is nothing but the total time for which thermal power plant is in on condition. So this is TT or TS. And the next one is the cost function, or we can say energy, thermal energy. So FT is nothing but power into time. This is PGT star is nothing but power, and HM is nothing but it's related to time. So why we are considering here PGT star? So from the graph itself, what we understood is stream is going to produce a constant power, that is nothing but PG star. So that's why I'm replacing PGT with PGT star. So our target is we need to find out here PGT star. So you can write thermal energy like this. But if you observe here f of PGT star, it is nothing but independent of the time. So that's why you can bring outside. When you bring outside, you can rewrite like this: f of PGT star into sigma m equals to 1 to nt hm, because this function is independent of the time. Okay, you can write like this. And the next one is ft is equals to, this is same, and whatever this one just now we have seen, this is nothing but tt or ts. This is nothing but first equation. This is nothing but a first equation. Okay, understood everybody? So thermal energy is nothing but f of PGT star into TT. TT is nothing but the total time for which thermal power plant is in on condition. So this is nothing but first equation. Next, from our basics, what we know is cost function. How can we write the cost function? F equals to a plus bp plus cp square. This is nothing but cost function. But here, when we are considering here PGT, just replace PGT instead of P. You can write f of PGT function. So this is nothing but our basic cost function. But when you look at here, characteristics, the power is nothing but PGT star. So that's why instead of PGT, take PGT star. This is nothing but f of PGT, and when you multiply with TT, then you will get here energy. Okay, that is nothing but thermal energy. This is a second equation. So this is nothing but the power related term, and TT is nothing but a time. How much time the thermal power plant is in working condition. So when you multiply these two, then automatically you will get the thermal energy. This is second unit. But the thing is, we need to find out TT. We need to find out TT, and we need to find out PGT star. How we can find out? That is nothing but by using one more constant, that is nothing total thermal energy. So already we know how to represent total thermal energy. It is given by sigma small m is equals to 1 to nt PGT star into hm. So this is a lower limit and the total number of intervals for a thermal power plant, and this is power, and this is a time. So this is nothing but thermal energy. So PGT star is always constant. When you write outside, then you can get like this. So what is this value? Sigma m equals to 1 to nt hm. What is this value? TT value. Okay, TT value. So finally we can get E equals to PGT star into TT. So from this write down TT value. So this is nothing but third equation. This is nothing but a third equation. Now, if you want to find out PGT star, substitute third equation in second equation. Then you will get FT in terms of PGT star only. Let us try to substitute. Okay, so that is this one. FT is equals to A plus B into PGT plus C into PGT star square into, what is the value of TT? E by PGT star. Okay, then multiply each and every term with E by Pgt star. Then you will get like this. Okay, that is nothing but E of t. Then in this condition, you will try to find out the condition for optimality. So this is when you multiply E by Pgt star for each and every term, that is A, B, C, then you got this equation. And the most important thing is how we can find optimal condition for maximum or minima. What we will do? Differentiate with respect to the variable parameter, that is dft by dpgt star. When you do the differentiation, A is constant, E is also constant, and this is nothing but seems to be like 1 by x. What is the derivative for 1 by x? It is nothing but minus 1 by x square. And B is constant, E is constant, so you will get 0. And C is constant, E is constant, and pgt star is nothing but 1 only. And make it 2 equal to 0. So from this, find out pgt star. So from the find out pgt star. So finally you will get here pgt star is equal to root over A by C, where A and C are nothing but just coefficients in the cost function. A is one of the coefficient which is related to the fixed cost, and C is one more coefficient which is related to the running cost. So from this equation, what we can observe is pgt star is completely depends on only A and C values, and that too these are constant values. When these two are constant, then automatically pgt star is also a constant. That's what we have seen in the previous curve. So when you go to this curve, pgt star is nothing but a constant value only. So this is nothing but a constant value. So how you can get the constant value? Root over A by C. Here A is a constant value and C is also constant value. So that's why whatever the power is there, that is also constant value. So this is nothing but pgt star. And in the previous slide, already we have found TT value. TT value means for how much interval thermal power plant is in active state. Okay, this is pgt star. And from this, what is the conclusion here? The conclusion is very, very important. So what is the meaning of pgt star? Why we have found this pgt star? So in order to reduce the fuel cost, in case of thermal power plant, how much power is going to produce? That is nothing but pgt star. So if you want to minimize your budget, or if you want to minimize the fuel cost, then we need to produce this much of power by using a thermal power plant. So how you can get this power? By using characteristic equation, that is root over A by C. So that is the conclusion. So thermal unit must be operated at this power only in order to minimize the cost. This is nothing but the condition for optimality when we are considering the special case in hydrothermal scheduling. This is nothing but algorithm 1 problem. So this is the today class. With this, let me wind up today's session. Okay, thank you very much.